Hello and welcome to MentorMeet Stories. Today I am absolutely delighted to have the co-founder, and I'll introduce him properly in a moment, the co-founder of MentorMeet. Been meaning to do this for such a long time, and we get to speak today. So I'll welcome Mo, and then I'll introduce him in a minute. Welcome.
Thank you, Jennifer. I know it's long overdue. I think we've been planning this for the best part of 8 months, haven't we? And things just keep cropping up.
Awesome.
But we're finally here, so it's a good thing.
Amazing. So let me just introduce Mo, and he can tell you a little bit about himself. So Mo is an agility, so he's Mo Khan. He's an agility coach. He's a co-founder of MentorMeet and also a member of the Forbes Coaches Council. That sounds like a mouthful, but it's great to have you with us today, Mo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Mo, before we kick into our story.
Goodness, where do I start? So I'm what they consider an agility coach. I've been doing that for about 19 years now. People always ask me what that is. In essence, it's just a way of transformation and transforming organizations from a state A to state B. And it's a framework that we adopt. And I'm sure lots of people must have heard of it, where you get senior management saying, we need to be more agile. So they'll bring someone like me in to come in and help the organization be more agile.
Right. Okay. Well, you can tell us a bit more about that in a minute.
Yeah.
But today, Mo has written loads of articles, obviously, for Forbes Coaches Council, and you can find lots of that online to read. But we wanted to focus on one of the things that we talk about a lot, and also we find from our coachees, it's a bit of an issue around this whole myth of working hard. And yet sometimes that whole idea of working hard doesn't quite get us where we want to be. And there's something about that sort of the political landscape in an office, or the way that the games that we have to play. We want to just kind of unpick some of that. What is your experience?
Yeah, I think my motivation to write the article, I think, was born out of frustration. I like to problem solve. So it was always the case of, you would go into an organization and, there's a change initiative of $250 million, $500 million, big transformation. But then there's just the three of you, and you've got to ramp up a team really, really quickly. So you're given literally 6 to 8 weeks to ramp up 100 people. So you're kind of forming and storming that team right from the onset. And so you're interviewing a lot. And I would see really, really good candidates interview, and even internal within the organization. So they've been there for some time, and they're really, really good from a technical aspect, but then they would always trip up on the second interview. Okay. And it was always a puzzle, because it was like, well, they're really good on this front, but what are they, what are they lacking here? And clearly there is something, but then you always go, well, what can I do? Or what can I suggest? And even in your own coaching clients, where you go, what can I suggest to then say, go here and plug that gap? And, I'm talking 15, 20 years ago now, where you go, I don't know where to send them. I don't know where I can suggest and say, go here, do this course, sort of thing. And it was always, trivial things if you think about it without context. But, when we were interviewing, the first interview was like, are you technically adept? Can you actually come in and do the work? The second interview was always, are they a good fit? We kind of know they will be, but really test them on this. And different interviewers adopt different techniques. When I was on the other side of the interview table, so to speak, one comes to mind is one of the hiring managers would constantly cut across me. And I thought to myself, God, it's not going to be very nice to work with. But I realized he was doing it to test what I'm like under pressure. Rightly or wrongly, that was his technique. Right now, afterwards, I mean, I landed the role. It was a case of, can I just ask why? Because now that I've met you over 6 months and we're working closely together, you're nothing like how you were in the interview. Is I needed to know you could handle the pressure, and we've got a lot of stakeholders here who are very, very senior at what they do, and they don't have time. They just want you to come in and just tell them A, B, and C, and off you go. They don't need the context, or because they know that they're the functional head of this division, sort of thing. So as you're talking, they'll constantly cut across you, and I was testing to see if you would get flustered, right?
So you passed the test.
fortunately I passed the test, but he was saying a lot of candidates did not. And now that I'm coaching one-to-one and teams, I see that as well. Really, really technically adept individuals. But when it comes to presenting themselves in a particular way, they're not there.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. I came across this new coined phrase, interpersonal fluency, whatever that means.
Okay. There's also some new phrases and terms coming up all the time, isn't there?
I'm guessing that interpersonal fluency is probably what you're talking about, where I guess you have the skills to know how to navigate, read the room,
Yes,
and do all those things. But how do we get those skills? So when you're coaching and somebody comes to you with this issue, how do we handle that?
I talk about coaching, but I think it's, for me anyway, it was exposure.
Okay.
When I first started my career, it was, this was in the early 2000s, where you think to yourself, I've landed my first role. It's a training contract. That's it. I'll learn on the job, and that's okay. But I think had I had the opportunity to, in terms of what I know now, I would have adopted a lot of things that can accelerate learning on the job. And one of those things, I'm not saying it's the only thing, is learning from others. Now, that could be through training, that could be through mentoring, and that could be through coaching as well. So what comes to mind? I remember really early on in my career, we would go to a lot of networking events. And I remember one of our seniors pulled us, not just myself, the whole team to one side. And it was a case of, we were talking to this senior director and he mentioned this, and I realized you guys didn't laugh. And, we're in our early 20s, fresh graduates, and we're just looking at them, well, it wasn't funny. I can't remember what the joke was. But we were like, well, it wasn't funny. And it was like, yeah, but this is where you got to build rapport. So where's your fake laugh? And I was like, what do you mean? I don't know I know what a fake laugh is, but no one's ever asked me that before. And he was like, go on, show me your fake laugh. And again, we just started laughing because we thought it was a funny request. But he was being genuine. He's going, look, you're going to be in social circles, fast forward many, many years. And I'm going, I don't know why.
Did you learn that fake laugh?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think about it because I used to work in technology, right? So we all used to be, huddled together in a room, and that was the technology office, the IT support office. And I remember going, let's practice. And then you gauge my fake laugh and I'll gauge your fake laugh. And then where we were going, ha, 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 ha. And, you're doing and then we were like, we sound awful, right? If someone walked into the room at that point in time, they probably thought the tech team had gone crazy for a minute there. But it didn't come naturally. It doesn't, right? It doesn't. But it was an important lesson for us because what our senior explained to us was at that moment in time, it was genuinely a funny joke from his perspective. But he was saying the fact that you didn't laugh, it almost came across as being rude. So he's going, now think of it the other way. That director's walking away going, oh, they're a bit odd at the very least. And
they should learn to be funny then.
Well, yeah, I mean, it probably works both ways, right? But, we're technology guys. There's a lot of things we now know we didn't know at the time, right? And there's all sorts of stereotypes about technology guys. Some are true, a lot of them are not. We do like talking to people.
I mean, I jest about that, and the fake laugh is a funny one. But I guess that there are other things that people. I mean, I can imagine somebody in a work scenario where you're having to flatter somebody's ego, even though you don't feel that that's the right thing to do. Because it sounds a bit like that, isn't it? If you're having to laugh at somebody's fake laugh, then, you're almost flattering their boss's ego.
That is a really good question because now that, I'm fully fledged in the coaching world and coaching one-to-one, I have this conversation with my clients all the time. The authenticity of it, right? Are you being authentic? And I it depends on the scenario, right? Like, if someone's cracking a joke and you can do your fake laugh to be polite, but you can stop there and not flatter their ego, right? I think there's a fine line between
so the fine line
cracking that smile, being polite, and then taking it a step further and then going into flattery. I think for me, on a personal, I would draw the line there. but again, it's subjective, right? And I guess that's where people will call it as, oh, he's playing the game.
Yes.
And you have to be wary of that too, because that can backfire on you as well, right?
Yes.
And all the terms of Mr. Teflon and
Yes.
all those things that we know that come across when you're in the corporate world.
Yes. Another term aside from interpersonal fluency is this whole thing about people saying, don't work so hard, work smarter, not harder. In your world, and if you were coaching somebody who came in and has really been working hard, but nothing's happening, and the boss is saying to them, work smarter, not harder. What do you make of that?
See, I don't like that term. I think because I've heard it so many times, and forgive me, but I feel like a lot of managers use it as a get out of jail card.
Okay.
Right. There's an impasse. Their senior directors are asking them for a deliverable that's probably impossible, very, very difficult to attain. Yeah. And they're now pushing it onto the team. And the team's like, well, how can I do A and B and get to C if those calculations get me to Z? And a lot of times the immediate manager will go and work smarter, right?
Whatever that means.
Whatever that means, right? But if you flip it away from that context into a genuine context where it applies, for example, career progression, yes, absolutely, work smarter, not harder. Because I come across a lot of individuals who would kind of focus on almost the university mentality, right? The mindset of being at uni and education, where, I've got a 2-1 or I've scored a B on this, so I need to work harder. And 9 times out of 10, you work harder and you do better and you come out with an A or an A star, and then it's rewarded. That then gets translated into work, into the world of work, where you go, as long as I put my head down and work, my work will speak for itself. And I'm guilty of that. Hands up, totally guilty of that. And I really wish someone sat me down earlier on in my career and went, actually, no one's grading your work. Yes, you hit the deliverable, you tick a box and you move on. But there are other aspects in the world of corporate world or anywhere, just where you're dealing with other people, that factor in terms of how you're perceived. And in a way, people's perception is reality, right? So you could have someone who's really, really high performing, but an absolute annoyance to work with, right? Unless they're really bringing in the green, bringing in the money, promoting them, I could promote them, but they might then cause this issue or that issue. And those things are then factored in. Hopefully they are, right? A good manager will factor those things in, because ultimately the question is, can I leave this individual in a room one-to-one with my senior directors, the managing director, or even the CEO, without them shaming me? Because ultimately it's my reputation. They're representing my reputation. And that's what a hiring manager is looking for, whether it's an external hire or an internal promotion. One of many factors. So yeah, in that sense, work smarter. You could be really, really good, technically adept. I almost see it as 3 pillars, right? So you've got your technical skills, your hard skills. Your second pillar is almost like your soft skills. Okay. And then your third pillar is almost like navigating the environment, reading the room.
Okay.
So if I'm naturally a loud person and I'm bubbly, but I'm about to go into a HR disciplinary meeting where I'm not being disciplined, but I'm there as a witness, or, I'm alongside HR, would I then bring in my bubbly personality? Maybe, maybe not. But ask yourself that question. It's wrong to say, I will be like this or I won't be like this. Read the room. Sometimes a little bit of humor eases the tension. Other times it's a big no-no because you're about to let someone go.
Yes, it sounds amazing. I love the 3 pillars. So your technical ability, then your interpersonal skills, or the way that your social skills, and which are clearly very important. And then the third bit you said was really navigating, using those 2 things to then navigate your path. Having said that, we do know that it's not as simple as that.
Absolutely, yeah. Because I'm condensing 20 years worth of experience into 3 pillars, right?
Yes.
And what I'm trying to deduce or kind of get out of that is, you can't do it alone, right? Because here I am. Someone will probably watch this and go, it's okay, great. You've condensed all this and you've simplified it into these 3 pillars. What am I meant to do with that? And I'm going, well, you can go this way, that way, that way, that way, that way. And there's probably 100 ways you can go through this. For me to sit here on a podcast and say, do this or don't do that, it's wrong because I don't know the scenario. I don't know. And when I reflect back on my own career, and I would say career limiting moves.
Yeah.
Right.
I've had them.
Yeah, at the time, you're like, yeah, I'm going to do this because, and then, and you map it out in your head. Oh, and then I'll get the promotion. But in hindsight, you go, what was I thinking? Right. But you learn, you put it down to experience and you learn and you move on. And then, but it takes 15 years. It takes 10 years, but you've got ways to accelerate that, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So those 3 pillars, talk to someone about those.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be an actual official mentor. It could be a trusted friend. You know, when I go into a room, I tend to do this and I suffer from what I think, you know, foot in mouth disease, right? Is a common one I hear from my clients. What do you think? And a lot of times people go, no, what are you going on about? I don't, this, you think you do that, but actually you don't come across like that at all. Right. And when I talk about those 3 pillars, it's for awareness, not as a solution to say, I'm going to implement that, because
Okay.
you then go into the how, right? You go into the how of those 3 pillars and then you go, well, I can't really do this alone. And I would always say, talk to someone. So it could be someone internal within your organization. I would always say, try and strip out the office politics and try and find someone external, because they'll always give you a different perspective 9 times out of 10, right?
It's interesting because I guess it's a framework, isn't it? And it
Yes.
is a useful framework. As you say, you've condensed a lot of your experience and made it to simplify it so that you're clear about the fact that most of the time people have the technical skills.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, they won't make the job, right?
Yes.
So that's one of the things that you definitely know that you have. Then the softer skills that can be developed. But as you're saying, having the right mentor or the right coach helps you then tease out, because it's that awareness. Because as you say, a lot of the time people feel what they do may not be right, but
Yeah.
how do you bring out that authentic self
Yes.
in
Yeah.
order that you can do it?
Yeah, and it's I would add to that and go, it's about the access as well, right?
Okay.
So I went to a comprehensive school in inner city London. A very, very good school, did well academically, but we didn't have a debating club, for
Okay.
example, where I could go and polish my confidence and my public speaking abilities. I'm sure things have changed now, but I'm sure there's a lot of schools out there who don't have that. But I know there's a lot of private schools that put a lot of onus on public speaking and holding your own and having that. I was listening to a James O'Brien LBC radio show, and he was talking about public school swagger. And I was like, do you know what? That's probably a really good term. And he's like, what is it? What is it? Because there's a finite number of people coming out of public school who are privately educated. But if you then look at how many of those individuals going into senior leadership, there's a lot. And it's disproportionately represented. So you think to yourself, what are they teaching? And then you can't help but think it's the soft skills. It's pillar 2 and pillar 3, right? They're taught how to navigate the environment, whereas we learn on the job. I had to learn on the job. And I'm almost saying to my younger self, go and seek the coaching or the mentoring or the trusted advisor, whatever badge or label. Let's not get hung up on that. Go and say, look, this is how I am in a meeting. I struggle to be, so is that confidence? Is that gravitas? Label it what you want, but I need someone to just to challenge me a bit, coach me out of that, like your professors used to do at university, where they would challenge you in terms of your thinking to become critical thinkers. You're all performing in a way, whether it's with your friend, it's a minor form of performance, but when you're at work, you're performing. And what was it? There was another podcast, right, in the MentorMeet series where we had Josh Roche, who was talking about performance. Do you remember that one where he was, and I talk about it all the time now, where he was saying, lying in bed doing nothing on YouTube is a 0% performance. And then you work your way up from that, from talking to your friends to performing at work to them doing public speaking is probably the other end of the spectrum. And that's always stuck with me. So now you reflect and go, even now I'm going, when I'm about to walk into a meeting tomorrow, what can I improve on? I've been doing this for 20 years, but I can still improve. No one knows everything. So I would do 2-3 sessions with a public speaking coach. And I think I've gone as far as I can for now, but then I would go and get coaching in something else. I would sit with a mentor and go, I'm about to do this for this platform. Never done this before. How does it work? Let me pick your brains for an hour. And that's how I'm accelerating my learning.
Okay. So it's maturing, but having the nuance or knowing how to accelerate that maturity.
Yeah, I think it's one of those, I see this path, acceleration path, whatever you want to call it, mentoring, coaching, as one of the world's best kept secrets.
Yeah,
right.
I would agree.
Yeah, it's genuinely, because I kind of, not reminisce, I look back on my career and I think of a particular colleague and I go, he was Mr. Teflon, wasn't he? Like, he would go into these meetings, he would always know what to say at the right time. It's like, gosh. And I always think he was just like that. He was born with it. But then you're still in touch, and then you reach out and you talk and you meet up for coffee and you're going, you had access to someone, didn't you? I would never brand it as coaching, mentoring. And it was like, yeah, my someone in my family or from my friend network was this, and I would always go and talk to them. And I was getting some sort of guidance. And that's why he was performing the way he was. What I guess I'm saying to the wider world out there is, you can take that advantage away from your colleague, right? And there are lots of your colleague right now could probably be getting this, might be on this acceleration path, but they won't share it with you because they've lost their competitive edge if they do, right?
Do you think that things have changed considerably now in the work environment? Because I remember times when you know, I back in the day when I was fairly junior, I remember I didn't know who the chief exec of this big organization that I worked for was. And one day I'd gone in to go and get something, and I opened the door to either a storeroom or something. And somebody came out and says, oh, I didn't realize what was in that storeroom. And I said, well, it's because it's not your business to know, is it?
Yeah.
Being cocky. And he says, yes, it actually is my business. And my eyes just went from below to top, and I realized who I was talking to.
Oh,
was the chief
goodness.
exec.
Oh, no. Career limiting move, maybe.
But back in, I was mortified. I'm thinking, oh my God, I've just destroyed my career, and all of that stuff.
Sure.
But actually, in this day and age, is that the same? You know, we walk around thinking you have to have your elevator pitch just in case you meet the right person, and you can spin off what you say in a smooth way so that person remembers you. But is it really like that, or is that stories we've told ourselves?
Has it changed? I would say yes and no. So the organizations have changed. Yeah. Credit where it's due, right? They've proactively done a lot of work, and they continue to do so, and they have all sorts of initiatives. I think personally they take it too far when they go, we're one big family. But I'm like, no, you're not. And don't, let's not go there. But they have come a long way compared to where they were even in the 90s or even the early 2000s when I started in the last 20 years. Has it changed from people coming new into the workforce? I would probably err on the side of saying no. Okay. There are lots of initiatives out there, but far too many people who have gone to prestigious universities, what comes to mind? When I used to work for a large financial institution, we used to look after a lot of the graduates on the graduate program. And how a lot of these programs work is they will always hire more graduates than there are positions available after the 2 years is over, right? So we would only have about 5 positions to give. And there's a cull. But and the way it would work is over the 2 years, they would go on 4 rotations, so 6 months within each division within the bank. And when you would have kind of your review or catch-up meetings, right, it would always be, from the graduate's perspective, how well am I doing? And you go, yeah, it's good. You've done this and that deliverable. And I love the fact that when I asked for that deliverable, you not only did you do that, but based on how we've been working for the last 3-4 months, you've given me this extra as well, because you naturally know that's how I work. So I like that, because in my mind, I'm like, oh, you're thinking outside the box. You're impressing me. But it was always gravitating around, yeah, but where am I in comparison to the other graduates? And then you'd be like, we don't track that. But you talk to the other graduates. Yes, I do. But so where am I? Are you looking for a grading? And 9 times out of 10, it would be, they are. They're almost, they need that. They got a first and I got a first 2, or they got a 2-1 and I got a first. Therefore, I'm doing really well. And therefore, yeah, and it's a confidence boost. So keep at it, and they could, and I'm going, we don't track that. You're looking at the wrong metrics, and the fact that you're, we would always kind of, when the actual internal team would be having those conversations in terms of which group we keep and which group we let go, this was a common theme. It was, no, too junior, and they wouldn't use the phrasing as mindset, but it's like, no, I just don't think they're a good fit. But ultimately what the senior managing director or the desk head would be saying is still thinking like a student.
Okay.
And we can't, it's not our job they've been here for 2 years and they haven't changed. So, and I would always think, I don't know where to send these guys.
Yeah. Is that part of the game playing? So is that, because I'm thinking about almost as though it's a comparison game. So they want to see where they are ranking in the levels, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Or is that a self-confidence thing? As you say, if it's student mentality and not work mentality, how do you shift that? Because it must be, or is it personality?
I think, and I love having these conversations with you, Jennifer, because we've already peeled the layers, right? Because we've already done a deep dive. We're talking about how to resolve this, right? But I think from a client's perspective, it's just all they know.
Yeah.
They haven't been shown another way. So when I'm coming in saying, we don't grade that, in their mind, they're going, what do you mean? Like, I'm performing, I expect a grade at the end of this. And I'm going, no, but that was university, that was college and school.
Yes.
We don't do that here. Like, I wouldn't even know what I'm telling you is, I can give you feedback, right? Like, great. This director, reached out and said, you did really well on that piece of work. So, but and we always give them rooms for, kind of exposure. We wouldn't call it improvement. So these three things, maybe focus on these three things.
It's interesting that coaching was seen as remedial, wasn't it?
Yes.
I wonder how much of that still
a lot of organizations still see that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I don't know how. I wish I had a magic wand that I can say, I'm sure I know there's plenty of people talking about it, that it shouldn't be, but I don't see it landing yet, unfortunately.
What can MentorMeet do to help switch that around? Because coaching is not remedial. Coaching is actually around what you talked about at the beginning, about the acceleration of growth, and the awareness raising and making people believe in themselves. And
it's having conversations like this, right? And we're having these conversations more and more, where you'll be coaching an exec or even a program sponsor who's mid-tier within the firm. They're going, I've got this $65 million initiative to deliver on, and I'm the head of this function, so I know what I'm doing from a functional perspective, but I've never managed change before, and I don't know who to go to within the organization. So I've reached out to you to bridge that gap. Great. But while we're there, we're going, well, you're kind of working in a silo, and we can fix that bit, but you're always going to get potentially derailed by this person, that person, that person. And you almost need to work at a portfolio organizational change layer. So who is your agility coach? Do you have an agility office? And a lot of the firms do. So the stakeholder I'll be working with, is this mentoring or coaching? Let's not get into that. But
we could,
from an academic perspective. Yes. But for me, it's the acceleration plan. So I'm then talking to that person going, proactively reach out to your center of excellence if you've got one, or the person who's heading up change within your organization. Say, look, and use these words. And I will coach them on these words, because then they'll go, oh, actually, hang on a minute. Jane knows. Oh, Jane's using these words. She must know. And it gives you automatic credibility.
Okay.
Right. And I'll give them quick, the access we were talking about to bring them on to par, up to par. And then start making those impact there. And then going back to the 3 pillars in terms of navigating the environment, suddenly now, you're the head of this function, but you're helping to sort the organization out. And the C board have now started to recognize you, because you're working cross-functionally, not in terms of just delivery, but helping the organization as well. So it kind of ticks a lot of boxes.
From MentorMeet's perspective, can you imagine a world where you're convincing an HR director that perhaps 60% of their training budget should be awarded to coaching? Imagine what difference that would make. Yeah,
I'll tell you, we've had these conversations, right? And I get it. Like, I've worked on the other side of the fence, and I still do as a fractional enterprise agility coach. You can't. I think the issue is it's like sold as a silver bullet, and Agile suffered from that in the 2000s as well.
Coaching is sold as a silver bullet.
Yes, like adopt Agile and it will solve all your problems. And I've been in these rooms where you've got big tech firms coming in, And I'm going, no, Agile won't solve that. It won't solve that. It can help solve that, but it won't solve it. You're telling my directors, and those directors are going to come to me and go, get it done. You're setting me up to fail. So I would be in those rooms with big tech firms, consultancy firms going, hi, can you give me a scenario or a case study where you've done that and it's actually worked? Because my understanding is it won't. And then suddenly the C-board are sitting there going, who is this guy? It's like fresh out of uni. And I'm like, oh, hello. But was that a confidence thing? Probably not. It was just, I could see a car crash happening, right? And I didn't want to be involved in it. So it was my get out of jail card sort of thing. But I find coaching, the one-to-one coaching, the team coaching, whether you're EMCC, ICF, or Association of Coaching, is kind of sold in the same manner. Adopt coaching and it will solve all your organizational problems. And I'm going, it would, if 80%, or 90% or even 100% was around coaching and you had the perfect company. And I know companies like Microsoft and Google have that, right? When you go to Google's offices, they have bean bags and swings. And so they are really trying. But even then, has it solved it? I don't know. I would be really, you would need to give me a lot of evidence to say we've fixed every single organizational problem.
Maybe that's a study we should do.
Maybe. I'm sure there are studies out there that people retrospectively have done that, right? So again, I come back to the people who are selling coaching. I'm not
suggesting that the whole entire training budget be devoted to coaching, but a good proportion of it.
Yeah.
Given what we know about the difference coaching, particularly in our experience of coaching senior leaders, we've seen what that does.
Yeah.
So you can just imagine if that sort of cascaded down the levels a little bit more. I mean, a bit more of a budget for coaching in an organization wouldn't go amiss.
It's the budget, but it's the understanding. I would add the understanding too as well. Like a lot of my clients would always feedback because they're always department heads or they're always leading a team. And what we're seeing now as a platform is we're seeing a lot of these managers and directors being asked by HR to do the coaching to their team.
Yes.
And they're going, well, I don't know what coaching is. So what you do with me, I try and mimic that with my 12-member team. And I'm going, okay. But in the back of my mind, I'm going, but coaching is an art, right? We can send you to a 5-day training course and get certified by someone, but it's almost an art and a discipline in that respect. And, do you have the time to really spend an hour a week that's 12 hours out of your week, your working week, and you've got deliverables and you're looking after an international team. Like, no, I just have 15-minute coaching sessions. I'm like, no.
So that for me is an organization that wishes to develop a coaching culture.
Yes.
But not necessarily deliver.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that's different.
Yes. But, and I would add, it's kind of joined up with coaching is still remedial.
Yeah.
It's the penultimate step before a PIP.
So we need to switch it around.
So it's like, well, HR, what are you doing? And I love my HR friends to bits, but it's like, where's the joined up thinking? Have you spoken to delivery? And we always have these productive conversations and they start off difficult because HR are HR and they got to represent the organization. And I get that, but you're there to help the team. You're there to help the individual as well. And once you do your job properly on a personal note, you get the satisfaction. But it's lovely to walk back in where you're meeting your senior directors and they're going, I don't know what happened over the last 6 months, but the team's kind of there. We have less of this and less of this and less of this and less of this. And it's the less of that we try and, make it a fiscal statistic that we can monitor to then, satisfy the ROI. It is not just a financial investment, it's a time commitment as well, right?
ROI. I'm thinking this has been such an amazing conversation and we've really covered a lot of ground. Sure. From the perspective of the organization, from the perspective of the coachees themselves, from a coaching perspective as coaches ourselves, as mentors. What are the key things if somebody's listening to us today who's identified themselves in some of what we've said, whether from a cultural background and some of the games we play, the myths actually, whether there are any 2 or 3 myths that you could bust for us as we are wrapping things up?
Very few people are actually out there to get you.
It's true.
To say no one is, I think that was probably me 20 years ago. Oh, everyone wants me to succeed. No, unfortunately, the world is the world and people are people. But there's a lot of people who want you to succeed. So whatever room you're walking into, no matter how many people you're talking to, always have that in the back of your mind, right? I'm referring to another podcast in the MentorMeet series where I think it was Joanna from Oxford University who mentioned it, and again, it stuck with me. Where people want you to succeed when you're doing a presentation, right? There is avenues out there to accelerate your growth. And I say that because a lot of clients and a lot of people walk around, and myself included, right? Earlier in my career, it was like, well, it's just who I am. I'm not naturally a good speaker. I'm naturally a quiet person. I naturally don't talk. It's just who I am. And I labeled myself. So I would go into meetings and not say anything. And when it came to my 360 review, my director would do my review and go, I went in and we were looking at salaries and we had a conversation about you, and I wasn't really expecting to have that conversation about you. And I'm going, why? And she goes, well, I know you can do all these things, but these other directors don't know. And when I'm telling them, they're going, really? He can do these things? And I'm like, well, so why don't you start, you have my full permission mode to talk in these meetings. And I'm going, yeah, why am I not talking in these meetings? But it's a confidence thing, because I'm going, say it, is now a good time? And by then the moment's gone. And 9 times out of 10, someone else has said it. And you're going, oh, darn it. I was about to make that point, right? And now I'm just a fly on the wall. And so, and it was one of the things she said to me is like, in a way, rightly or wrongly, their perception is the reality.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So they just see you as the quiet, shy guy in the corner who
hasn't got much to say.
Who hasn't got much to say. But I'm working with you on a daily basis. I know you're going out, you're having these one-to-one meetings, you're convincing these difficult stakeholders to buy into the agility plan. You're really good at what you do. And I'm going, oh, thank you. Yeah, but, and I'm dismissing it as, oh, I don't know what to do with this praise. Right?
I wish we'd had time to talk about this whole thing about the meetings and so many people who don't feel that they can voice.
It's a lot. There's, like when you're,
that's a whole podcast.
Yeah, you could do a whole podcast on. There's so much to coaching, and I always find when people ask me to come and have these conversations, I'm like, I don't know how to do the discipline justice, right? In the half an hour that we have, because you can talk about things, and it's just a fascinating thing to talk about as well, right? So there were 2 myths. Sorry, to answer your question. The third myth would be you have it in you. I have a lot of peers, colleagues, friends even, like, that's not me. I just want to go in, do my thing, come home. I'm not ambitious. And I hear that a lot, and I find it frustrating, especially amongst my friends. And I go, why? Where are you getting this from? They're like, no. And, one of my fascinating topics that I'm finding right now is that precise question. Where are you getting this from? Because we went to school together. We ended up at uni together as well. Where are you getting this from? And by talking and talking, you start to see themes and patterns. And then, through the MentorMeet network, you've got access to brilliant people and brilliant minds. And you're going, I spoke to so-and-so and I'm seeing this theme. What's that about? They're like, oh, do you know, there's this paper that's came out a few years ago about intergenerational trauma. And actually it might be his inner critics, not him. It's actually his grandma from 2 generations ago. And he's just carrying it through family trauma. And I'm like, what? What do you mean family trauma? And they're like, yeah, go read this paper. And then you read it and he answers one, but then throws up 20 other questions. And then go down a rabbit hole and you're like, oh my God, I now need to get versed in this because I think I'm walking around with it too.
Yeah.
Right? You reflect and you go, oh my God. So coming back to the third one is you have it within you, but you've got other things within you too that is a stronger voice.
Really interesting, isn't it? Because you're right. There's an element of, I've discovered this thing and it's helping me. I'm not going to share it and let the world know. But there's something on us as coaches as well about how we demonstrate.
Yeah.
What I would say, demonstrate the power of coaching. Because we've seen it work. We've seen it make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah.
As you say, it's not in isolation. There's lots of things, as the studies would tell us, lots of things that come together to make it. But there is something for me about coaching when somebody takes the time to say, do you know what? I'm going to unpack what's in my head, examine it,
Yeah.
explore it with a trusted person who
Yeah.
doesn't judge me,
Yeah.
and reorganize my thoughts in a way that serves me to make the next step.
Yeah. Look, I could talk about myself, right? I don't, a lot of people don't know, but I had a heart attack at the age of 38, right? And we won't go into that for another day. And I remember my cardiology team, brilliant cardiology team, you know, they're like, look, it wasn't stress, it wasn't work related, it was during COVID, it wasn't related to the COVID jab. Anyone who's thinking about that, right? But people ask me, was it the COVID jab, Mo? No, it wasn't. It was hereditary, right? It was something in the family, and I was just the unfortunate one. But my cardiology team were like, your recovery is going to take about 3 years because you've had what they class as a widow maker. So you're very, very lucky to be alive. And I'm like, I don't feel lucky at the time, right? But what do I do with myself? They're like, live a hippie lifestyle, Mo. You know, don't go back into the corporate world. I'm like, yeah, but I need the mental stimulation. What do I do, right? And the things I've achieved in the last 5 years since my heart attack, I credit. And my coach, mentor, the chap who put me on, who helped me on the acceleration plan. I don't know how I should brand him here.
Coach.
Will probably tell me off. But I do attribute a lot of my successes to him giving me that coaching thing, right? Like even applying to Cambridge where we met, I wasn't going to apply. Who am I? I grew up in a city, London, went to a comprehensive, didn't go to a prestigious university. And he's like, why not? And I remember I always come home, and he won't mind me mentioning his name, Kevin. And I would always say to my wife, oh, Kevin's just not getting it. He's not getting it. I keep telling him, I don't want to. And he was like, why? Well, why not? Why not? Why? Not that he was being a nag, but it's the way he was asking, to the point where my wife started going, well, why don't you just apply and see? And I'm going, why on earth would Cambridge, the top university in the world, 2 years running or something, right? Yeah. And I'm like, why would they accept me? I'm not one of those. And I would compare myself to my classmates who would not turn up to lectures, turn up 2 weeks before, flick through some books and then come out with a first. I'm like, those are what I would consider the boffins. I'm not one of them. Let's not. And they always go, you're self-limiting here. Why are you why are you self-limiting? Here you are as an agile coach going into organizations going, you could reach the skies, or, practice what you preach here. I'm like, but is very, very dangerous. So I think just to humor my wife and to humor Kevin, I applied and I got in.
Amazing.
And I'm going, okay, but I'll drop out after the first lecture. Right. And then you went to the first, I didn't say a thing. And then I remembered the director's voice, right? Say something. So second lecture, I said something. Third lecture, I said, and then I started talking. And it's only during tutorials where my tutor was going, you've got a really interesting perspective on things. I'm like, really? You're just gaslighting me, right? All the imposter syndrome, all those things come out. But then you come out of Cambridge and then you're going, well, what else can I do? I've been really limiting myself. And then the Forbes Coaches Council, someone goes, I think you'll be really good. Apply. No. Very selective who they let in. No. 6 months it took me to convince myself. And then I applied, had a 7-panel interview. And at the end, they were like, yeah, join.
Amazing.
And then you're going, you sure? Like,
awesome.
There's no other Mo Khan you've got me confused with. And I share this story because other people are not sharing their coaching success stories. And I'm hoping this resonates with someone, really, genuinely. Yes. Because, life 2.0 after the heart attack, right? And it's all about do good. And is it a Chinese proverb? So plant trees where you won't bear the fruits.
Yes. Okay.
The future generations. Yeah. So I've very much brought into that philosophy.
Awesome. Mo, thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Honestly, it's been so, what's the word I'm looking for? It's been so insightful.
Thank you.
We've had so many different things, and you're great because you've touched on so many things. If I wanted to label this podcast, I'm going to find it really difficult to label it, but it's been an amazing conversation.
Thank you. I hope I've done it justice because it's such a wonderful and broad topic, as you know.
And so if anybody's interested in knowing more about Mo Khan or MentorMeet, I'm sure there will be some details of how you can access us or reach us in the show notes. But mentormeet.com is also very easy to hit on the internet, and you will find out more about us. But it's been a wonderful conversation. Hope you've enjoyed listening to us. Do subscribe and listen to the other ones that might come out in the following months. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mo.
Thank you, Jennifer.